Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Step forth, mortal. I am Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Forbidden Knowledge. The forgotten prince of many paths threatens all of reality. Oblivion and Nirn are in danger. You are fate's chosen. Will you intervene?
The Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road, rated M for mature.
Matt, let me ask you a question real quick.
Oh, sure.
Were you a fan of Space Ghost?
Yes, but I was definitely late to this because this was so. Just as soon as this popped up, I started doing a little bit of research on Space Ghost, and obviously the first. Well, this show has a whole interesting history. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. Kind of.
Okay.
When I was a teenager and getting into Adult Swim, this was on. I think it was running at the time. It was one of its incarnations of the show. But I definitely never saw this with Al. This is very early.
So I knew Space Ghost from Talk Soup. When they would pull clips from late night talk shows, they included Space Ghost Coast to Coast as a late night talk show that they would pull clips from. Space Ghost was, I think this is kind of what you were hinting to a little bit. People associate Space Ghost Coast to Coast with Adult Swim, but it predates Adult Swim by a very large margin. This was just like a weird niche late night thing that Cartoon Network would just play at like 11:30 at night throughout the 90s. It was their very weird 90s shows.
Late night Cartoon Network before they called that Adult Swim.
Yes.
Essentially.
And
it was the first thing produced by William Street.
Yes. And then when they finally made Adult Swim, early Adult Swim was a combination of new William Street shows and kind of syndicating older William Street stuff like this. My association with Space Ghost, honestly, is before this was Cartoon Planet. And I loved the Cartoon Planet albums. They put out 3 albums, which was Musical Barbecue. I forget what the other one was called. It was like a beach vacation one. And then there was the 3rd album, which was Brack Presents The Brack Show starring Brack, which like is an insane album of Brack singing songs with the Chieftains and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Diamond Dallas Page and all these.
Wow.
It is a bizarre album from like 1999, I want to say, like just before Adult Swim kind of blew up. But yeah, Space Ghost, the first season of this is season 1, episode 6, is such a different show from what I connect with Space Ghost. The voices are slightly different, like the humor and the pacing. This was, as someone who's never taken drugs in his life, this show was clearly designed for the slightly hungover, slightly stoned college student flipping through channels to find at midnight and be like, what the fuck is happening on my television?
It's incredible. I mean, yeah, the other thing I didn't fully appreciate. So Space Ghost, again, the first production by William Street. For people who don't know William Street, I mean, most Adult Swim shows.
Yeah.
It's Space Ghost, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, The Brack Show, Harvey Birdman, C-Lab 2021, Tom Goes to the Mayor, Robot Chicken, Squidbillies, Moral Oral, Metalocalypse. I mean, the list goes on and all the way up to like Rick and Morty, like some real big shows, Venture Brothers. And this is the first thing that they made. And, Aqua Teen Hunger Force is a spin-off of this.
Yep.
And The Brack Show is a spin-off of Space Ghost.
Yep.
Like, the number of things that came from this show, and this show, because I don't think we've said it clearly, is essentially a recreation of a 1966 animated series that was made by Hanna-Barbera. And these guys took the footage from the original series and basically, especially in these early ones, just took scenes that already existed and put new dialogue over them, put the floating head of an actual person in the corner, and then called that a TV show. I mean, this is bold. This is like guerrilla filmmaking. It is a wild, wild thing, what they did here.
So what I would compare this to, controversial director aside, Woody Allen's first ever movie was a film called What's Up, Tiger Lily? Are you familiar with this movie at all?
No, I'm not.
All Woody Allen did was he bought a Japanese spy film from like a couple years earlier, and him and a bunch of his comedy friends just redubbed it to be an outrageous film where the spy is trying to get a recipe from a mob boss. And it's absurdism at its highest level. That's basically what they applied to in doing Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It's like elements of What's Up, Tiger Lily mixed with like Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm always fascinated by these talking head interviews, right? Because as far as I can tell, they had to bring these people in and just give them a softball pitch on what the show is. But like, they're having to react to things that they are not seeing. That is basically just being either explained to them or just questions being asked completely out of context.
Yeah.
You mentioned Aqua Teen Hunger Force and how that's a spinoff of the show. The theme song from Aqua Teen Hunger Force is performed by Schoolie D, who's the first guest on this
Matt
episode.
Kelly. I had that written down. I was so excited to point that out. That's crazy. Yes, exactly. Schoolie D, the rapper, who does the Aqua Teen theme, is the other guest in this episode. I mean, this is an amazing like little piece of, if you're into animation, this is a wild piece of history. Space Ghost in general is just this incredible, like, bizarre achievement. And the fact that it led to all of these, you know, I was going to call them culty. I think Aqua Teen still counts as culty, but now it's blown into like full on mainstream entertainment here. Like, this is the origin of a lot of the tree expands from this into so many things we have now that it's really kind of hard to believe.
And I want to say something. I know that we have the Weird Al podcast here. I think Schoolie D is the funnier interview on this particular episode, though.
Well, so Schoolie D, and you know, it's funny. I also just saw here, like, Space Ghost is credited as an inspiration for Eric Andre and the Eric Andre show.
1000%
totally see that. It makes total sense. And like the Eric Andre show, it's kind of the most fun when the guest has the least understanding of what's going on.
That's what I was going to say. Al
when
is coming into this really knowing what he's doing.
Al's ready to do comedy.
Yeah, Schoolie
D is confused.
So confused. I love that the very first thing that Space Ghost says to him is, "Where did you get the ball cap from, son?" There's a couple lines that I wrote down. He says, "I saw a yard gnome once, and it didn't scare me." And then he just keeps going, Schoolie.
Yeah. I also liked I have a conversation at one point about what the D stands for in Schoolie D.
So the
and
D
Schoolie
stands for
has
defenseless.
no answer. Schoolie D has no answer, and Space Ghost says, "Does it stand for defenseless?" Because, you know, and then he switches it like, "No, it stands for different and delightful." That's his segue out of that section, which I think is great.
The Schoolie thing made me think of one of my all-time favorite episodes of Space Ghost. Have you ever seen the episode with Busta Rhymes?
No, I have not.
The Busta Rhymes episode is a must-watch episode of Space Ghost. And throughout the episode, Busta Rhymes keeps disappearing. Like, he's just not in the video. And every time it happens, Space Ghost just goes, "Hey, where's Busta?" And that's all I could think about when he kept yelling, "Schoolie, Schoolie."
So I did look up, just back to the interview side of this for a moment, because I did look this up. Because this was on Cartoon Network, that's like a Turner Broadcasting subsidiary. And the creators of the show noted that because of that, they were able to film this. So imagine, again, for a second, this is in the 90s, right? It's not like people are showing up to do any sort of guerrilla interview here. No one can film on a phone or get audio. Like, this has to be a professional setup for these people to record these things. But because it was Turner owns CNN. And as a result, they were like, anytime any guest that we were interested in was almost anywhere in the world, CNN has an office. And the creators of Space Ghost could meet them at the CNN office and record these interviews in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And just show up and like throw a bunch of questions at them. If they're on board, do that. And then CNN would take the footage and send it back home so that they could actually edit the episode together. That is how they got, because that's the other wild thing about this show is the guests. For a show that is absolutely absurd and should have no, like, why is anyone
literally as niche
doing
as a
this
show can be on television at that time?
Yeah, I mean, just like really quick, again, another like just running down a list of guests of this. Side note, this episode we're talking about is episode 7 of the whole show, which wound up running for 11 seasons. This is 7, season 1. But yeah, guests, the Bee Gees, Ashley Judd, Joe Franklin, Bobcat Goldthwait, the Ramones, Fran Drescher, Michael Stipe, David Byrne, Jim Carrey, Hulk Hogan. I mean, it just goes on and like, and then if I scroll ahead a bit, yeah, there's Bob Odenkirk, Tyra Banks, Dr. Drew, Dennis Leary, Stephen Wright, Hanson. There's Hanson again. Just mentioned them twice. Conan O'Brien. Yeah, I mean, Willie Nelson was a guest, regular guest on the show. Oh, there's the Busta Rhymes episode. I see that now in season 7.
Did you see who the first guests were on the pilot attempts at this?
Denzel Washington,
and then the second attempt at a pilot was Emma Thompson. And then Chris Gore, which is like not that much of a get. Like I love Chris Gore, but like, you know, getting the guy who ran Film Threat is not quite the get as Denzel Washington and Emma Thompson.
It makes total sense. They knew this was the thing. Like what made this show work was it's like Eric Andre, like having people on who are just like, how is this person doing this? Like, that's the weird appeal. There's an episode with Tom York as a guest, which is great.
Hulk Hogan and Slash. I'm scrolling through some of these.
Conan and Slash. Oh my God. It's really like Sarah Jessica Parker.
Just chaos.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries plus napkins plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
This is your typical radio ad while eating a Crunch Bar.
This is Automatic of Otto's Used Cars. This weekend only, we're having a whale! Bring the kids. See for yourself. It is huge. Gonna make a big splash. No other dealer can say they have a whale like this.
When things sound dull, turn up the fun with Crunch.
At Maximum Mediocrity, people say things like,
I don't dress like this on the regular basis. This isn't my, pooping uniform. This is not what I wear.
And they also say things like,
The nurses are usually either angels of mercy or whores.
Every episode is a new experience where you get to know people that aren't famous but should be.
Why did my facing Floyd Mayweather in the woods?
My co-host Morgan and I track down the people you didn't know you needed to hear from.
It's like hot sex in a mug.
We are the Maximum Mediocrity Podcast, and we are on all major podcasting platforms. We'll be waiting for you.
Now, Al as a guest makes a ton of sense, right? Because this feels 1 or 2 steps removed from what he does with Al TV interviews.
Yeah.
It's not looking at an old interview and taking the conversation out of context, but it's not that far off because the person being interviewed, unless they've seen the show already or have been given a rough idea of what it is just baffled by the questions that are being said to them. The Al one, though, so here's what I don't understand and here's what I don't know fully. Is how I'm imagining this was done is that they had the person in front of the camera being interviewed, and I feel like they had to have been recording Space Ghost and Zorax. Like, they had to have had the voice actors there conducting the interview in my mind that they could then animate, because they're, especially with Al, Al's reacting to so much of what's happening around him during that interview that it feels hard that just like some director just told him general questions and let him react to it.
Yes. It seems like from what I read here, it looks like they do. So most of the interviews, it seems like, were done by Dave Willis, who is one of the creators of this show, or one of the writers of this show, who also, again, went on to be one of the head writers for Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Yeah. It was a spinoff. He does the voice of Meatwad, and he does the voice of Carl for those shows. But it says here that this is on Reddit, but it seems to be based on some behind-the-scenes footage that was released, that celebrities were interviewed and filmed. Space Goat's side of the interview was written around their responses.
Oh.
So some of the questions were intentionally funny and lead in, but other times, funny enough, they're actually kind of doing a version of what Al does with his fake interviews.
Yeah, I guess
so.
They're
feeding you, they're replacing the question. They're using genuine answers and replacing the questions. Now, for some of these, I think they're probably they're probably gauging it based on the guest and what makes the most sense for them. But it's like a little bit of like, what silly thing can we ask you to get a funny response? And then after the fact, they can re-edit the question side to be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah. And I wrote down, Al comes into this interview at an 11. He's screaming, "Hello, people of the universe."
Oh, yeah.
And then I think Zorak tells him to shut up and he yells, "I don't know how."
I don't know how. Exactly, yeah.
But Space Ghost asks him and Schooly D the same question. What superpowers do you have? And Al's superpowers include, and I may have gotten this wrong, you're usually better at properly documenting a quote, but I wrote, "I can eat my own weight in ding-dongs.
Check.
I can make a red light turn green by staring at it."
That's correct.
And was it, "I can paint watercolors with my butt"?
Oil painting. I can do an oil painting with my butt.
And then Space Ghost goes, "Yeah, that's enough to get you in here."
I like the fact that like Al immediately shows up and is addressing Zorak.
Yeah.
Like he has been told like there are characters he's going to engage with. Schooly D is not talking to Space Ghost or Zorak. He is just answering questions to the best of his ability.
Which I think makes it all the funnier that they then approached him and were like, "Would you like to write the theme song for this cartoon about a bunch of foods that are..." Like, the funny thing with Aqua Teen Hunger Force is the first season, which I think is the best season of the show. Other people would argue otherwise. When they originally pitched the show, it was what the show currently is now, which is just nonstop random chaos. Mm-hmm. And Cartoon Network was like, "You've got to have something going on with these characters." And they're like, "Fine, they're detectives." Yeah. And like the first like season and a half, they're constantly solving cases of like who crushed Carl's car and stuff. And then that just like goes away. Like as the show
they're trying to solve mysteries, but of course the idea is that they can never actually solve anything. No. So it's like, isn't the first episode with like Rabot?
Yep.
The enormous like robotic rabbit is released on the city, and
first
Frylock
DVD
is trying to find it, and Shake is like, "It's fine, he's fine. Let's just go home."
Yeah, that first DVD got so much play because it came out my freshman year of college, and it was just like every house I went to, I'm like, "Have you guys seen this show? You've got to watch this show." Like it was the most insane
I
thing
had the
on
same
television.
experience with Aqua Teen early on. That was a cornerstone show for me. And then it is funny because throughout even the next few seasons,
I'm so disconnected from it.
Every once in a while, still throughout the seasons, there'll be a moment where they'll be like, "We need money. Yeah. Remember when we used to solve crimes? We need jobs. We got to figure out a way." Like they would occasionally revisit the idea that they're supposed to, in theory, be running a detective agency out of this house. But yeah, no, they dropped that very quickly. But that was what it took. Again, the idea of this absurdist show. Now for Adult Swim, it's like there's nothing too surreal for them to get greenlit and try. But yeah, at this moment in time, again, like Space Ghost, it's like this is 1994 that Al is on this show, and it has really absurdist, surreal. Even in the very beginning, the cold open of the other characters talking, I can't even like. There's some really dumb joke that really made me laugh. Where one of them is like, "I've been waiting for a package in the mail, and it arrived." Just like, "Oh, what was it? Soap."
Yeah.
It's like, "You just got soap?"
Lava
like, and he's like, "Lava soap. It's got pumice."
Well, and let's get
laugh.
into it.
That's great.
This episode is called Banjo because the subplot with Space Ghost is that he's raising sea monkeys, and his favorite sea monkey he names Banjo, and it turns into like this dragon monster he has to kill. And The one so Moltar has two lines. You mentioned that Moltar is the one that talks about the
Moltar,
lava
yeah.
soap, but then also when the thing shows up, he just goes, "Man, that's a big shrimp." And then the bit that killed me, probably made me laugh harder than any element of the interviews, is they kill Banjo. And then it cuts to an in memory of Banjo, and his date of birth and death was just 11 p.m. to 11:15 p.m.
Yeah, on the date this aired, September 23rd, 1994. Yeah. They put it on the air date. Yeah, it's great.
Again, to go with what you're talking about and what I was saying earlier, this is 1994. Adult Swim, I'm pretty sure, launched in 2003. Like, this is almost a full decade before they really said, let's brand what this late night television stuff is. And I will say, as someone who stayed up and watched Space Ghost, it was funny and it was weird and it was surrealistic, but it was not boundary pushing the way that when I tuned in for the first... When they announced Adult Swim, me and my friends made it a point to stay up late and watch it. And we were on, we were talking about a couple weeks ago, like dating ourselves. We were all on AOL Instant Messenger, just shooting messages at each other. Like, I can't believe what we're watching. And the first episode that they aired of C-Lab was the one where the girl wants to get pregnant. And you're literally watching cartoon characters like sensually grind up on each other and stuff, and I was like, what is happening on Cartoon Network? Because Cartoon Network was like the safe kids cartoon channel. Like, it was like, that's where you went for like old Flintstones cartoons and stuff. So like to see something so shocking at that time, like, it's kind of like what they talk about how The Simpsons seemed so tame when Beavis and Butthead and South Park finally hit the scene. Like, that's what happened with Space Ghost.
It is hard to explain to a younger generation how unprecedented some of this stuff was, as it was with The Simpsons, too. People thought The Simpsons at the time that came out was...
Oh, presidents were bringing it up in speeches about the downfall of society.
It was horrific. People were like, this is a way that they're going to corrupt our children by taking cartoons and making them for adults and putting these like messaging in our children's content. This was really, Adult Swim. I just had to check the date. 2003 is the quote unquote pilot of Aqua Teen.
Yeah.
Which was also... The pilot episode of Aqua Teen was an episode of Space Ghost. That was they call it a backdoor pilot, where it's technically the pilot to a new show while also being part of an existing one. And then they wound up doing a separate like pilot for Aqua Teen. But yeah, no, at the time this happened, and this was perfect age for me, like January 1st, 2003, that Aqua Teen, I'm just about to turn 17 years old. Yeah. Could not have been more. I was exactly right.
I was gearing up for freshman year or a senior year of high school. Like, I was like, this is right in my wheelhouse. It was a delight. I was so excited to find out that Al was on this show. It felt like a perfect thing for us. So I was glad that we got to talk about this one.
I know there's not a whole lot of Al specific stuff to talk about. I like there's one other moment where Zorak randomly asks Al, he says, do a B flat. And Al just shrieks the highest note for a really long time. I actually can't tell if they did editing to make that note longer or if Al just held that note.
But and they all join in too. It reminds me of like Dumb and Dumber. Do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Exactly. It's a lot like that. And then Zorak asks him to contort his body. So of course Al loves any opportunity to put his legs over his head and stuff. And
he gets
to do that.
He
gets tangled up in himself. Yeah. And then as soon as Banjo the sea monkey starts destroying the set, Al vanishes, which I love, as if he seems like he's nervous that he is somehow going to get hurt through the television when this enormous sea monkey is destroying the set.
Well, Matt, we've got a few more Al TV appearances to talk about. There's going to be a few that are so brief and so short that they're just going to be kind of tied into a mailbag episode, but we do have another really strange artifact of the 90s that we have coming up too before we get to Bad Hair Day. So everyone stay tuned. There's still more Al coming to your TV screens that we have to cover before we can get into Amish Paradise.
Yes.
But we will get there, I promise. This isn't some weird.
Don't worry.
This isn't some weird bit where we're just going to stretch this out for years.
We're not stalling on purpose at all.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.